Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a story about how a simple shift in mindset and a solid strategy can turn what feels like a total data nightmare into a huge career-defining win.
All right, let's start with a feeling I bet a lot of us know all too well. That pit in your stomach. That sense of pure data dread, when the sheer size of a task just feels completely, totally overwhelming. And this is exactly where our story kicks off. We've got an analyst, David, and he's looking at a new project. But he doesn't see an opportunity, he sees a mountain he just can't climb.
Now, to be fair, David's problem wasn't all in his head. The scale of this project was genuinely massive. To him, it looked like a wall, this giant barrier standing between him and getting the job done.
He saw this wall of data as being filled with all these hidden pitfalls, a really high risk of failure. And of course, that looming pressure of a tight deadline. For him, the odds, they just didn't look good at all.
But here's the twist. His project manager, Sarah, she saw the exact same situation and had a totally different take. She didn't see a wall, she saw a path forward. And it all started with her immediate counterplan.
Okay, so this slide really gets to the heart of it. The real conflict here wasn't about the data itself. Nope, it was a clash of two completely different mindsets. You've got David, who's just stuck in dread and doubt, totally underestimating his team and their tools. And then you have Sarah, who's looking at the exact same problem with pure confidence and a clear-cut strategy. So as Sarah starts laying out her confident plan, David, well, he kind of tries to put her in a box. He takes her decisiveness and frames it through this very specific, traditional lens.
But Sarah is not having it. She immediately reframes the whole conversation. She just gently pushes those labels aside to focus on what actually matters, right? Effective, assertive action, no matter who's taking it.
And that little shift in perspective, that's everything, because it opens the door for a real, concrete strategy to take shape. Sarah's confidence wasn't just talk, she had a practical plan to take on the project's biggest risk head-on.
And look, David wasn't wrong about everything. He was spot on about the main threat, what he called the silent menace. You know what I'm talking about, those tiny hidden data entry mistakes that can poison an entire analysis and just torpedo your credibility.
So how did Sarah plan to fight this menace? Well, her solution was this really elegant three-step process. First up, get all that data into one single master sheet. Create a single source of truth. Step 2, deploy macros. These are basically just little automated scripts to do all the heavy lifting and repetitive analysis. And finally, step 3, use that same automation to hunt down and flag that menace of data errors before they can do any real damage. Simple, right?
So you've got the plan, you've got the confidence. What happens when the rubber meets the road? What happens when the strategy actually goes up against that massive wall of data?
And boom, there it is, the aha moment. The second David sees a tool like Power Query in action, which by the way is fantastic for automating data cleanup, his whole perspective just flips. That huge data set he was dreading, suddenly it's manageable. He's not looking at a spreadsheet anymore, he's looking at a powerful engine for discovery.
And once they had this new approach, things started changing, and fast. The team wasn't just surviving the data anymore, they were actually finding new patterns for the first time. That so-called menace was contained, David's dread just melted away, and real, genuine confidence started to build for their big presentation.
And it's interesting, right? As his perspective shifts again, this time from the logical side to the creative potential of the tools, David goes right back to trying to label Sarah's clever strategy. And just like before, Sarah gently steers the conversation away from the labels and back to what works. She's not interested in who did it or what we call it, just the fact that it's a powerful and effective mix of logic and creativity.
Okay, so all of this builds up to the grand finale, the final triumph. The team isn't just on track to finish the project anymore, they're poised to deliver something truly victorious.
I mean, just look at this table. It lays it all out perfectly. The transformation was absolute. The data itself went from being this overwhelming menace to a controlled asset. But the real change? That was internal. The team's mindset went from dread to excitement, and that single shift flipped the likely outcome from total failure to an assured victory.
And Sarah really brings it all home with the key lesson here. The real victory wasn't just about crunching the numbers. It was about learning to trust your strategy, your team, and your tools from the very beginning, before that feeling of dread even has a chance to take root.
So that leaves us with a pretty powerful question to think about, doesn't it? What amazing tools, maybe something as common as Excel, are hiding in plain sight in our own work? And what incredible challenges could we solve if we just stopped underestimating them?